Have you ever felt like no matter how much you try, your relationships feel stuck, as if a silent barrier prevents you from truly connecting? I am a scholar of Carl Jung, and I have spent years exploring how his discoveries about archetypes can open new pathways for intimacy and understanding in modern partnerships. I promise you that by the end of this short conversation, you will have a practical tool that will give you a new sense of clarity about the forces at play in your daily interactions. And you will see how the most compelling discovery from Jung about the archaic self can help you heal and grow. With that, let us first validate the problem that many people face in everyday life. Emotionally intense moments often pause abruptly because people unknowingly dance the same shadows and patterns they inherited long before they met. There is a frequent sense of frustration that follows when the other, who seemed so wonderful, suddenly feels distant or demanding. When motivation wanes and one feels stuck in a cycle of misunderstanding and replication. DeWitt notes in his clinical work that these symptoms arise from a misalignment between the conscious desire for change and the unconscious legacy of archetypal forces. Jung identified these patterns as deeply felt images that reside in the collective unconscious. Each of us carries a reservoir of shared cultural symbols that shape our attachment styles, growing in childhood on insecure versus secure foundations, the struggle to be accepted or to be the self. It is a pattern that patient E, a young writer confronting a partner's inability to say "I love you," crying once more when she could not store the emotion. The therapist I was at that time guided her through the idea of the anima, the feminine facet that all men and women can possess. Today, we can see that these archetypal images are not metaphors, but real, dynamic forces that echo in our conversations and routines. Modern people might describe these as core beliefs or attachment styles, but that is a shorthand for the old, untransformed archetypal stories that fight for their expression. These stories shape our expectations and reactions, making the connection urgent. Jung's concept that the unconscious is not a random place but a structured reservoir holds the key to today's world, in which people juggle work, technology, and personal authenticity. The role of archetypes can explain why we drop out of relationships or why we sabotage love. We need to understand that the unconscious calls for resolution, just as a recommended therapy does. Now jump into Jung's insights. The primary concept that shines for relationship transformation is the idea of the shadow, integration coupled with the personal archetype of the lover and the ruler, because these are the two forces that dictate how we express ourselves within a partnership. The lover archetype invites us to give presence, truth, and desire, while the ruler archetype invites us to set boundaries, to direct, to take responsibility. Under the veneer of day-to-day choices, we may unknowingly favor one over the other and feel imbalance. If you are a caretaker who constantly gives without receiving, you might be operating via the caregiver schema of the mother archetype. The problem is that feeling the importance over your own needs can fracture intimacy, so that the partner feels unappreciated and you feel drained. These insights can be surprising because Jung himself documented that his own personality crisis in the 1920s was triggered by a repressed ruler archetype that made him feel a lack of control, eventually leading to a reconciliation with his inner authority. Good news is that Jung proposed that the process of individuation leads to liberation of the shadow and a balanced integration of the lover and ruler. Within a relationship, this translates to a conscious dialogue between two selves, the one that gives all and the one that stands firm, together with humility. This balanced shift shifts a conversation from "Do you love me?" or "Do you just keep quiet for respect?" to "Yes, I love you, but I also want to share responsibility in our shared life." Because Jung emphasized that archetypes are not identified but experienced, we cannot label them with words, only with feeling. It becomes a transformation when your partner's need for control will be called out as a shadow, and you articulate in love this archetype, while also offering a metaphorical narrative of your own love. The encounter becomes a chance to rewrite the story rather than repeat it. The surprising element here is that Jung's people survive not only by confronting their demons, but by embracing the pater facere design that allows each person to align multiple archetypal energies simultaneously, instead of living in a single mode. The takeaway is that if the lover is muted by the ruler, then both you and your partner are inhibited from having pleasurable and meaningful interactions in business or at home. The practical method to rendering these insights into your daily routine is a set of 4 easy steps that you can start today. The first step is archetypal mapping. On a piece of paper, note down the key archetypes you notice in yourself and in the other person. For instance, caregiver, weary warrior, animating child, or creative ruler. Then label for each whether you currently feel it dominant or repressed. This step gives you a quick check of where the imbalance might lie. The second step is shadow journaling. Each night, write down one moment when you felt unable to express love or felt controlled by the other person. Jot it in detail. 3 marks the feeling and how you would like to respond in the morning. The third step is the mutual dialogue. Open a conversation with your partner about these archetypes in a non-confrontational way. Using mythic language, keep the tone of inquiry. Not, "you control us," but, "I have noticed a pattern that feels like a ruler and would love to see how we can both share responsibility." Finally, the fourth step is the integration practice. Spend 10 minutes each day in silent meditation, where you visualize each archetype as a color or a shape that flows within you, and you ask for their permission to blend them. You can create a mental image of the lover as a light flower and the ruler as a sturdy tree together in a garden of mutual respect. Now that we have a tool in your hands, the Jungian wisdom you might take away is that relationships are a dance of archetypes, and that honest dialogue about those archetypes is not a weakness, but a key strategy for authentic connection. You can feel less isolated, more in control, and deeper in your emotional life by recognizing and balancing the hidden forces inside you. By applying these steps, you improve your communication, dissolve endless misunderstandings, and finally invite a partnership that is yours. The promise is that if you keep this model, you will start to notice that both you and your partner feel seen and valued, and that the awkward part of love becomes a calm, awakened presence. Tomorrow, I will share how you can address those inner conflicts that feel endless, because Jung showed that it is the archetype of the self, the point of integration, that provides peace for the restless heart. For now, if you liked what you saw, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment telling which archetype you identified, and subscribe so that you don't miss tomorrow's insight into how to handle endless inner turmoil with Jungian guidance. Remember to tune in tomorrow and continue your journey towards psychological mastery with the voice of Jungian science, not forgetting the path of integration and resilience that can transform your relationships and your inner world.